You have heard of a disc world. You've heard of a ring world. But have you heard of a Mobius world? Ha ha ha! Hello, I am King Dungeon Master, and I'm here for another edition of King Dungeon Mastering, or whatever the hell his channel is. I got two campaigns going right now, right? So I've got my Aquamara campaign, and they are now level 15, so we are in the last leg, the last 5 levels to level 20. It's going to be an epic finish. I'm hoping to time it such that level 20, like the actual final sessions, are played at this year's nerd camp when we all go off to a cottage and play D&D for a few days. And I've got the other campaign. It's on and off a little bit. There are definitely bigger gaps. I remember now, that was the original plan, that this was going to be the campaign where we do sort of like 4 sessions per year, but they're big epic sessions. But the other day, who knows why these things happen? You're just sitting around and you just kind of feel like being creative. So you're like, okay, well, what's really getting the engine going? And nothing gets the engine going for me like world building. Therefore, what I allowed myself to start thinking about, because I don't want to neglect the ongoing campaigns. That's always a danger. You're just chasing down new and novel and fun little ideas. Don't want to neglect those, but I just feel like making something. And like, who knows where these ideas come from, but it did pop into my head that I wanted, okay, let's start this world building process from a place of what is the physical nature of the world. I go to that well a lot now that I think of it when I'm making a world for a campaign. Aquamara ocean world, like not the most original thing, but I wanted a Firefly-like vibe, so I needed them to be on a boat and be able to go to location. So water world with continents and islands dotted all over the place. The world in the club, the D&D club at school that I run, Exemplia. For some reason, I don't know where this idea came from. Gas giant, and floating on its surface, kind of like, embedded in the cloud layer, but not all the way down to the core. Don't worry about how it works. It's magic. But it's a gas giant, and there are these continents and moving islands and things, so a little bit like Aquamara. And with Thaldor, what I started with was just the notion that I wanted a bound realm. Like, that's it, just it. Because all of these decisions really do fuel the narrative, like what kind of storytelling is possible. So I sat down with the notion that I wanted to start a world building process and start with the physical nature of that world. I already knew that and I already know, by the way, if you're one of my players, especially one of my Aquamara players, get out of here. Take a hike. I mean, it's going to get spoilerific from here. So this is where I'm establishing a lot of fundamentals that you're probably not going to discover for way down the campaign. So I'd already decided that the tone and vibe of the next campaign, and I'm sure the players will be on board, is a Pratchett-esque kind of a comedy. Not comedy, but at the moment you declare something comedy, like we're going to try to be funny, it just flattens it and you're not funny. So I will say it's just much more satirical, silly, tongue-in-cheek, Pratchett-esque kind of things. But I didn't just want to reinvent a disc world, but I knew I wanted some kind of a strange shape to it. Then you get your ring worlds. I think these have also been. I don't really know much about the Halo, the video game series, Halo lore, but aren't Halos kind of ring worlds, or at least giant space stations? This is an actual ring world. The idea behind Larry Niven's Ring World, in case you haven't read it, highly recommend. Published in 1970, older than I thought it was, and it shows in a few places. Build a ring 93 million miles in radius, one Earth orbit, which would make it 600 million miles long. If we have the mass of Jupiter to work with, and if we make it million miles wide, we get a thickness of about 1,000 meters. The ring world would thus be much sturdier than a Dyson sphere. There are other advantages. We can spin it for gravity. A rotation on its axis of 770 miles per second would give Ringworld 1 gravity outward. I imagine the guy did the math on this. We wouldn't even have to have a roof over it, put walls 1,000 miles high at each rim, aim it at the sun, and very little air will leak over the edges. The thing is roomy enough, 3 million times the area of Earth. It will be some time before anyone complains of the crowding. So what did I do? I think I picked up, this is, and DM to DM, I recommend this as as part of your creative process, is you want to make something, right? Okay, well, it's got to be like, there's an input-output ratio that's got to be respected here. And even if it means just getting the engine running by reading your inspiration, your source material, and by, for goodness sake, have a notebook next to you. So I sat down. This is my old copy of Terry Pratchett's The Color of Magic, and started reading. And I'm not sure I'd made it past the prologue before the idea just into my head. We're going to make a Mobius strip world. I'm copywriting it. I'm declaring it. I'm putting my flag on it. It's mine. The world has already got a name. It's called Möbium Infinitas. That's the fancy name for it. Lots of locals will just call it the loop or the ribbon. There's lots of slang ways of referring to it, but officially the name is Möbium Infinitas. Let me take you on a little tour, and hopefully I can make this work with my camera. Okay, so to literally make the thing, I started writing about it, but the geometry is so weird that I needed to grab some some colored pencils and tape and scissors and actually make my Mobius strip world to, by the way, the proportions that I wanted. So we'll get into actual dimensions in a moment. But as far as like aspect ratio goes, this is a good representative. I wanted that aesthetic of like wide but still bendable, and what does it look like if you are standing on, one of the inside edges and looking across, so you can see that arc. It's gonna be, flavor-wise, dope as hell. So I actually made one of these. So I took a force. There were a few drafts. I've already thrown them out, but there were a few drafts of this first, like some too skinny or whatever, and I just needed to see where all these like lands and kingdoms landed and everything. So I made one. It is 4 centimeters across and 14 centimeters long, like the original strip. 4 centimeters across, 14 centimeters long. And then of course there's the Mobius part, so you bring the loops together, turn one 180 degrees and attach. So what this has allowed me to do, let me take you on a little tour of Möbium Infinitas. So we've got the humans. The humans live here. There are 4 kingdoms. It's humans, elves, dwarves, and orcs. I'm keeping it pretty classic. I'm keeping it downright stereotypical. I mean, kind of in this. I am taking a lot of inspiration from Pratchett, and what he's doing is like, dwarves are Scottish blacksmiths, which is like he plays on expectations and subverts them sometimes, but he's starting from a basis of stereotypes and common understandings of basic fantasy tropes. And for my players, I want that. I want to. Brandon Sanderson has said it once. Make a pancake. Just make a pancake. And then you can subvert expectations. You can build from there. But there are some bedrock stereotype tropes that we're working from. The human realm. 4,000 miles wide, 14,000 miles long. That's what each kingdom is, which, by the way, is already enormous. Correct me if I get some of the numbers a little bit wrong here, but 4,000 miles is New York to London, so that's already an ocean, literally an ocean of space. So that's how far across we got. So we've got room to play. And then the 14,000 mile long stretch, that's the aspect ratio, is from the top of Alaska to the bottom of South America, then back up to Mexico. So like a supercontinent scale. So there's room to play here. It's a big world, which goes humans, and then if we start walking the strip this way, we you wind up in elf land. So these are the elves, and then you're going 14,000 miles, and then we're going to loop in. So this is going to get hard to see, but inside this loop are the dwarves. They live here. and then you keep walking. Do 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 do. This is really hard to do on camera. Those are the orcs in there. Maybe you can. There we go. Those are the orcs. And then if you keep walking through Orkland, oh god, I've lost it now. But you get the idea. You wind up back with the humans. So there you go, a Mobius strip map where you move through all four kingdoms because they're all on the same side of a three-dimensional object, and eventually you wind up back where you started. Now, here's the world building part. So things need to, like, what you're looking for as a dungeon master and a world builder is, and maybe you're not, maybe you do things differently, but if you want to do it like how I do it, is you're looking for a world that does, kind of rest on recognizable forces and sources of tension, and it's got to work in a way. So here's how my world works. The human realm, each of these 14,000 mile strips I just refer to as realms. That's just the generic term for like the space that is occupied. So each of these four realms adding up to 56,000 miles. It would be a pilgrimage of several years to walk the whole loop, and it is done. We'll get more to that in a moment, more to the point there. But the human realm is, for the moment, known as the Nadir. That is both the name of the ruling personage. There's a lot of details I haven't filled out yet, but these are all kingdoms of a kind. We'll do political systems and stuff later. But the Nadir is both the name of the kind of the current the kingdom that is kind of on top, the realm that is kind of the dominant one, the hegemon, if you will. And currently, for the past 4,000 or so years, it's been the human realm is the Nadir. Now, this title can pass. It's been the elves in the past. It's been the dwarves. It's even been the orcs. But there is a Nadir, meaning like what Nadir means, that kind of the top, which is a little bit ironic because it's a Mobius strip. There is no center or top, right? And that's kind of the point. So at the center of the human realm is a mega city, because the human realm itself, it's a massive amount of space. So each realm will have its own unique biospheres and ecosystems, but it will be dominated by, in the humans' case, in the Nadir's case, it's urban. It's cities. It's sort of a Coruscant, if you will. And at the center of it is their palace, their grand, whatever it is. And the Nadir gets to dictate the direction, the prime direction of this thing called the Ribbon Road. Now, this is a feature I am quite excited about. The Ribbon Road is not, it's kind of historically kind of equated to like the Silk Roads. It's not one road, although it often kind of condenses down to that. But running through more or less the exact center of the entire strip is this thing called the Ribbon Road. And what it really is like when you come in from the edges, once you get to sort of the center 100 miles or so, you reach a built-up cosmopolitan urban zone, which is characterized by trade, by motion, by the flow of goods and energy and all of that. So the Nadir gets to dictate what is the prime direction. Is it going this way or is it going that way down the strip? Not to say that there isn't traffic going the other way, but there is just kind of a cultural to the bone understanding that to orient yourself on this strip, on this world in Möbium Infinitas, there is a prime direction and there is anti-prime direction. So most traffic naturally falls into this prime direction rotation all through the Mobius strip. Plenty of traffic going the other way too, but there is so this is where it gets like political and economic and all of that. So you've got the Nadir, those are the humans, largely urban. Well, urban centers are largely industrialized and they produce a lot of waste, industrial waste, human waste. So it's the Nadir in this case, and maybe it hasn't always been this way, but the humans do function as kind of the center of manufacturing, soaking up raw materials and pooping out, waste. Now, downstream from them in the prime direction, which, remember, they selected like centuries ago, perhaps, I guess it switches every now and then, they decided this is the prime direction, and so the waste just kind of like it's cumulative. It's over time. Like it's going to be interesting, kind of flavoring this, and that like it's just kind of an understanding. Yeah, that as you move downstream, next realm are the elves, and I'm just going to call them the elflins, the dwarflins, the orclins, and the nadir would be human lands, but it's the nadir. They get the title of that. So again, making it easy on my players, right? Easy stuff to remember, so then the story can really be, front and center. So downstream in the prime direction are the elves. Now the elves, their realm, again, lots of biomes and lots of ecosystems, but they are mostly characterized, they're elves, right, by forests, beautiful, gigantic, lush forests. So I'm going to make it pretty clear that just environmentally speaking, the waste comes downstream, but that said, the forests, just by their very nature, it can kind of absorb. They can kind of take the hit. They can kind of purify like what's coming through. The elves aren't happy about it, but the benefit to them is they do get kind of like the first grab at all of the wealth that also flows down through the nadir. So they're not mad at it, but there is kind of a ticking time bomb crisis moment that will, I think, fuel a lot of conflict and a lot of friction and a lot of adventure. Is that they're starting to notice that that this creep, that the unhealth of it is actually, it's been going on for so long that tendrils of it are getting close to reaching like the heart of their realm, because each realm has a heart to it, a center, they'll be different for each one. So that's a little bit of a problem. So getting further downstream, as it were, the elves. Let's see, I think it's the dwarves next. Yeah, the dwarves. So along the prime direction, next realm is the dwarves. Now this is where we're starting to get into the inner curve. So unlike the elves and the humans, who like when they look up for them, they are. If you look at the way the Mobius strip is made, there's the humans. There's the elves on the other side. When they look like outward, it's unobstructed sky. And there is kind of again, like just kind of playing into kind of, sociological principles and basic, sapient psychology, is the nadir has mostly been swapped between the humans and the elves over the millennia, because there is kind of a like, I don't know, who doesn't want the nice view? You know what I mean? Like they kind of have the primo, the way they think of it anyway, they have the primo spots. And so they've been swapping power back and forth over millennia. It's been the humans on top for about the last 4,000 years. There's going to be some deep history there. The dwarves and the orcs are on the inside curves, so mostly wherever they look up from. And you can, I don't know, maybe I'll figure out a way to publish this or just, keep examining it so I can understand from that perspective. Like if you're standing, in the dwarf lands and you look across, like what is your view? Now it's distant. I haven't done the math, but this is where AI can be helpful. I've talked to Gemini about this. I'd be like, okay, like just do a little bit of math for me. You're standing in the dwarflands. You're looking, up, but it's also across this Mobius strip. Like, how far is that? And it's just like an unimaginable distance. And if there's even a little bit of atmospherics and lighting, we'll get to the sun and the moon in a moment. They're their whole other thing. What I can flavor this with is, yeah, you're looking up and you'll see some portion of like sunlit, highlighted arc of the other side of the loop, but the rest is just kind of washed out in atmospherics and brightness. Or if it's deep night and both the sun and the moon are hiding, you can just make out, kind of some urban centers and lights flickering, on the other side. It's quite literally a different perspective for the dwarves and the orcs. So unlike having the nice view of looking out, at the stars and nebula and all kinds of, beautiful, pretty lights, you're getting some of that. But you're also, I think psychologically, they will be the species that kind of value more of like they see it as like, no, this is cozy, this is nice, this is like, wouldn't it be terrifying to just feel like you could just like fall off, the world and fly off into space? Well, here they kind of feel a little bound in. It will have a deep, like species deep cultural kind of an impact on how they think about the world. But the dwarves, oh boy, things get tricky with the dwarves. So the elves are absorbing, kind of the waste that is coming down out of the human realm, the nadir. The dwarves, too, it is, we're going to, many biomes, but is largely mountainous and rocky. They are miners and they are blacksmiths. They are, again, sort of another manufacturing center, so a little bit, kind of twinned with the humans, but their stuff, they do. I think it's important that they do like beautiful artifacts like jewelry and maybe even some more artisan kind of artistic artifacts, but also weapons. That really matters. Dwarven made stuff is the best stuff. There's a feature I haven't even told you about yet. The center, there's a thickness to this ribbon that doesn't really show. I'll bet even proportionately it's probably the same as the thickness of this piece of paper to this 56,000 mile journey that would take you all the way through. But it's about 60 miles thick. This world doesn't have an underdark. It has an inner dark. Huh? Pretty dope, right? So at the center of each realm, like I said, there's sort of some sort of a palace or a tower or a thing or whatever. There is also the only pass through, from say, the humans shortcut directly to what's on their other side, which happens to be the dwarves. So there's and it goes for the orcs and the elves as well. There's a pass through the world, and it goes through the 60-mile thick thing that I'm calling the inner dark. So of course there's all kinds of potential for drow and all of that. Now here's the dirty little secret. And the dwarves, they're not flooding the orc lands with their industrial waste. What they're doing is they're dumping it straight down into the inner dark. I think one of the first things that happens in the campaign is that a drow ambassador, for the first time that anybody can remember, has shown up at the Nadir's court and says, excuse me, your friends the dwarves are dumping their shit into our realm. We're not going to have it anymore. And so the Nadir is caught in an impossible situation where it's like, well, you can either start dumping into the orc lands, but the orc lands, we'll get to them in a moment. There's all kinds of problems with that. Of course, they're not going to be happy with it. It's a whole thing, right? Speaking of the orc lands, so we've gone, from the humans. If you're going in the prime direction, you go from the human lands, the nadir, into the elf lands, the beautiful forests. The dwarves are also nibbling at the other side of the elf lands because they need fuel for their forges, and that usually means wood. So they're getting, the poor elves, man, they're getting dumped on by the humans at this end of their kingdom, and they're getting nibbled away at by the dwarves at this end of their kingdom. Things are going to reach a breaking point, pretty soon. Not only that, but the dwarves are dumping their waste directly into the inner dark, which is going to start posing a problem. But then that brings us to the orc lands. I think I'm going to flavor the orcs as herds people mostly. That's their main culture, and their main biome is grasslands. And it's going to be this beautiful, like, the Ribbon Road, of course, is threading through all of this, but this is where it becomes the most diffuse, and the grasslands are so kind of healthy and hardy that, unlike other places where the Ribbon Road becomes either like muddy or dusty, and it's just kind of a nasty, like, it's important it's the artery, but it's, how highways are, right? But in the Orklands, just massive, vast grasslands that are so hardy that even, with the passage of all this traffic, like the turf remains, rich and green and springy. And there are these massive herds of, various animals that the orcs are, shepherding around. And because they're not having their industrial waste of the dwarves dumped on them, they can maintain this beauty. Keep in mind, this is the last stop before we get back to the Nadir. So at the back door of the Nadir, if you go anti-primeward, they've got this beautiful, like, they get the benefit to the Nadir is because, the primeward direction is the primeward direction. From the orcs, what they get is good, weapons, coming up from the dwarves. Of course, the orcs pick up some of these, so the orcs are well armed and fairly wealthy themselves because they're benefiting from the flow from the dwarves. Not only that, but it is very rich agricultural land, so the Nadir is well fed. Like, they've just had this pipeline, this prime direction pipeline to just grain and vegetables and the finest. Like, can you imagine the cattle that these grass-fed cattle that the orcs would be raising? So the Nadir is in a position where they are kind of on top. They're getting all the best stuff. Like, they're the the primeward direction allows them to benefit from this flow and then dump their waste out on the elves. And like, that's the thing. It's a world, guys. It's a world. It's a functioning, moving, weird, Pratchett-esque world that has, some built-in change and friction. Like, things can't stay like this forever. The sun and the moon have already decided, how do you light this thing and how do you do calendars and seasons and things. I've decided that I'm just going to describe the sun and the moon as performing complex figure eight patterns. And the sun and the moon are actually sentient gods who have been asked by the makers to assist them in literally making this world go. And so the sun and the moon are like, this is great. I bet these sapiens are going to put on some good shows for us. The drama is going to be great. So the sun and the moon, the sun is a little bit intemperate. It has almost kind of a bipolar. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I know it's a serious disorder, but almost like an up and down mood cycle, and those are the seasons, right? Like, everybody knows that the sun is stronger sometimes than others, whereas the moon is much more constant. I'm going to have again, to keep it simple so my players can really just immerse themselves in the world immediately and then have the fun, is there will be a 28-day perfect 4-week cycle that everybody, the whole ribbon, the whole world can function on these seasonal and weekly kind of schedules. Because, and this is the final thing I'm going to talk about today, I know it's been a long video, but I made a whole world. Playing wise, so what I've done, and I've had wonderful success with, they've been great campaigns so far, is homebrew world building for the most part, and milestone leveling. I never even considered mucking around with experience points, because why would you? If you can just declare after a dope session and you level up, why wouldn't anybody do that? But because I want the next campaign to be much more sandboxy, I think I can do that with this group. They are generous and creative players. Both groups. I think I'm going to start it with the Aquamara group because they're actually closer to completing their campaign, and then I'll probably just play in the same world for my other campaign as well. I think this is the world for me, which is why it's mine. It might even turn into what becomes, a novel later on. So, Möbium Infinitas is mine. What was I saying? Oh yeah, experience points. Much more sandboxy. I'm literally going to be running the sessions with some hex or grid paper in front of me, and they just get to decide what direction they want to go and for what reason. And I will be rolling on a ton of random tables to discover, what the encounters are, various locations, and we are going to build the map as we adventure. I kept sitting down to okay, it's time to start, mapping out these kingdoms and all that. And I just found myself continuing to not do it, not being able to do it, because I realized I, as the DM, kind of want to play as well. I want to roll on random tables for direction and encounter and terrain type and weather events and all of that, and then have the true delight of stitching it together with coherent story. Because, like I've been saying, I laid out, here's the physical nature of the world: prime word, anti-prime word, right word, or right edge. Oh yeah, here's the cardinal directions: prime word, anti-prime word, right edge and left edge. So it's like right edge and left edge, but just people say right edge and left edge, or they'll say right word and left word, road word. They get a little bit lazy about it, depending on the region that you're in. So we've got cardinal directions, we've got a world, we've got a building economic, cultural, and political tension. It all works. It works. I'm excited that the sun and the moon are both just needed physical elements of the world, but also sentient beings that I can absolutely credibly say, okay, so if the player characters are doing some dope shit, then it's credible that, because the sun and the moon are there for the show anyway, that they help. They can help with lighting and atmospherics in the scene. So the moon just wants the better view, so creeps a little bit closer. So this night, in this encounter, the moon is enormous in the sky, and the sun is just, peeking over the corner, so you get a little bit of, just a soupçon of side light magic hour, but because of the heat, it's creating a steam. Oh man, amazing. So I have a world, and the worst part is I really want to start playing in it, but I have to wrench my attention back to the campaigns that I have going, which is great. There's some great stuff going on there too. I just at some point, I think now being that point, I have to leave Infinitas alone and just let that cook in my subconscious for a little while. I've written down everything that I've recorded here, and I've told you guys about it. So I've got this record as well. It really helps me to talk this stuff through. Just writing is one thing, but saying things out loud. It's not real until it's kind of declared as canon, and I've declared a lot of canon today. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. It helps me out. Long live Möbium Infinitas. So I hope to see you at the table sometime. Come play in my world. And maybe I'll start a third campaign. I don't have time to start a third campaign. I can't start using this world yet. And I do need to let it cook for a little while. So I'm going to let it do that. And I hope to see you around maybe at a table someday. Later, losers.